All right, we are live. Hi, Jillian.
Hello.
Good to see you. So just wanted to let everybody know that being late on here is all on me. My day got away from me, and then Jillian messaged me and was like, so do I need to do anything? I was like, oh, that's that time already. So we're here, and hello. So real quick, I just wanted to welcome Jillian. She originally, like online wise, is still the blogger behind Montana Money Adventures. And like, do you still keep that as your branding at all? Or
I switched the name. So now it's just my name, Jillian
Okay.
Johnsrud.
Yep. Okay. And you have your podcast, Everyday Courage, and most recently, your new book. So,
Yay.
yeah. So maybe, yeah. Mine is back there. I should have grabbed it to hold it up. Jillian and I have met in person a couple of times, but not nearly for long enough. When we visited Montana in May, and we got to stop and have dinner at her house, and she gave me a lot of really good like tips and insights for my own online business stuff. So I just want to thank you too here, because like you really have been like integral in changing some of my mindset switches when it comes to creating content online. So
nice. Love it.
Yeah. So you want to maybe give like real quick for those who don't know you, who you are, and then we can talk some more about your book.
Yeah. So me, my husband and I was 32 when we became financially independent, which is also when I kind of went all in on being a creative and a writer and an entrepreneur. I'd written a little bit in my mid-20s after I was diagnosed with bipolar. So I wrote about mental health for a couple of years. Me and my husband, we never earned six figures. We started with $55,000 of debt. We have rental properties. We've adopted 4 kiddos. We have 2 biological ones. And we live in Montana, and we travel a lot. So that's kind of us.
Yeah. It was really fun to, get to actually visit you at your house and go home with some duck eggs. So
crazy.
Yeah. And for those of you who are watching, if you want to just drop in the comments, like where you're listening from, and if there's any questions you have of Jillian, her book is very specifically, it's a content creator book, but I would say that it's something that would still be a good read, even if you aren't creating content online, because we are all still online in some kind of personal way.
Yeah.
So
and it's felt like, when I started writing this, it's escalated. I felt like there was how people behaved online, and then there was how people behaved in person. And those two realities are starting to overlap a little bit more. Like the crazy stuff and hate that you see online is starting to show up more in person. Like one of my employees works on the school board, and it's nuts.
Yeah.
Like death threats and like foul language and name calling, and I'm just like, they're just
the things that used
to
be that people would only used to say online if they were hiding behind like an anonymous username and no picture. Then it went to, well, they're okay if it's their picture and their name, to now we've gone to it's okay even in person. So yeah. Remember, it used to be like, well, you'd never say that in person.
Yeah. I know people do.
Yeah. So how did you decide that this would be the book you would write? Because I feel like you've done a lot of content creating online, and you've got your podcast now, and you've written a lot. So like, how did you decide that this was like the story you really wanted to tell?
I would say I wanted to start here partly because it's really what I've been learning the last 5 years. So a lot of the principles in the book I pulled from work with my coaching clients, or just like my personal life, like figuring out boundaries, figuring out clear as kind, figuring out like how to focus on the process and not the outcomes, were kind of things I was sorting through for a good portion of my life. But really the last 5 years, like how to, it is for anyone who creates something and uses the internet to either find customers or find an audience. So from like musicians to small businesses, service providers, we're all trying to use this internet to either connect with people. But it can be scary and difficult and hard. And it was a lot of the conversations I was having with other creatives and friends. It was something I was just really excited to talk about. There's a quote that you should write the book that you need to read. And this is the book I've needed to read. And honestly, it sounds weird, but I continue to read. Like I just did book launch and I'm like cracking it open and I'm rereading chapters. And it's like old Jillian, who's like calm and collected, is speaking to current, slightly frazzled, nervous Jillian. And I'm like my very best, like pep talk giver. Like the old version of myself gives my current self the best pep talk. So
that makes sense. And I think when you're giving a pep talk to somebody else, it's easier to do. So in your book, you're not pep talking yourself. So I can see how, you're reading the words that you tend to be kinder and nicer to other people than you do to yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah. So what was the hardest part to write?
Oh, the hardest part to write. I think the part about creating emotional boundaries with your work, separating your identity from your work. I mean, it's such like a cultural narrative and norm that the work is your baby and it's an extension of you, and like, but how to set up some boundaries with your work, but also with your audience. That was a tricky one to explain because there again, I don't think we've had enough of these conversations of how to navigate this reality that we weren't created to maintain 5,000 relationships. Like that's not how we're hardwired. What was it? I actually took it out of the book, but there's this principle that we naturally form in groups of 150. And once it gets larger than 150, we break off into subgroups. Yep. Whatever the internet is, it is too big. It is not. We have not evolved to process that. So,
as we're talking on a Facebook Live in a group of 40 something folks. So and that's not even big internet.
No.
Like for a Facebook group, it's a decent size, but like that's still even just like. Mm-hmm. Teeny tiny, but also so many multiples of that 150. Yeah.
So I think trying to explain some of those ideas, just because we don't have kind of that common denominator, we don't have that shared language and that shared thought. And actually the shared language we do have is very counterproductive to creating online.
Yeah, that is so true. And it's so weird that this book, wouldn't have existed even 10 years ago, really.
No, the internet used to be actually pretty sweet. And that's how I started off the book. I got internet in our house in like the late 1990s. And it was like, it was like email forwards and chat rooms, and like my grandma learned how to send e-cards for like every imaginable holiday. We would get an e-card. And it just, right about the time that the military was like, we'll be kinder and gentler, the internet was like, I think we're going to go the opposite direction. And nobody I'm almost 40. My parents didn't grow up with the internet. Like we didn't have a generation to say, okay, here's how you use this. Here's how you speak to people online. Here's how you behave online. Here's how you interact. Like they had, thousands of opportunities with my friends in person or at a sports game, or how to answer the phone. They could teach us that. And now it's kind of like just naive leading the inexperienced. Like, nobody really knows what we're doing.
Yeah. So a lot of this, it sounds like, this is a book specifically for content creators, but at the same time, like, I think a lot of these conversations are not specific to people who are looking for an audience online, because in some ways, if we're online, we're looking and interacting with an audience, even if that's just your Facebook friends or the subreddit you're active on, or, anything like that.
Those groups have gotten bigger too. I remember when you had my initial goal with Facebook is I don't want more than 100 Facebook friends. And that's unrealistic now, because you can digitally meet so many more people. So it's not uncommon for people to have 300 or 400 or 500 Facebook friends. And while you're not trying to create content, you're just trying to share your life. You still have to apply these same principles. Like my friend just recently had an article published, and so she shared it on her personal Facebook page, for her friends and family. But because she had read the book, she was like, okay, clear as kind. You make the thing, you make the rules. So she said, listen, this isn't a political post. I'm not asking for your advice. I don't want any fighting or criticism in the comments. This is very personal, what I wrote. And if you do that, I will remove you. Just to be clear. And she's like, and then everyone behaved. I did clear as kind. I was very clear about my expectations, and no one stepped over that boundary.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a big part of it, is that we just generally don't set boundaries. And there's this idea online that if you set boundaries, somehow you are the one that is the problem, that you are the one who is, being mean or exclusive or bossy. And it's something that in real life, we don't have to shut people out quite to that level, but I think this whole ground rules and with women's personal finance, as we've grown, we've gotten a lot more strict on what is okay to talk about and what is acceptable in the group. I mean, I feel like we still allow for a lot of depth and breadth of stuff, but there are certain things like, do you wear your mask? Do you believe COVID's a real thing? Is climate change a real thing? Will you address people by their preferred pronouns? There's, a low bar, but the bar is not dropping. And it seems like for some reason online, anytime you put a bar in at all, somehow you're the one that's the problem.
Yeah, I talk about this in the first section about kind of the bad actors. The book's called Fire the Haters. Who are these haters? What defines a hater? And one of the differences between a hater and a thoughtful critic is that a thoughtful critic, one, wants more information. They're actually seeking personal growth. And they have some logic behind what they're saying. Haters typically don't. They don't have logic on their side. So instead, they weaponize emotions. And they throw those things back at you, you're being bossy, or you're being mean, or you're being restrictive. They try to shame people or blame people or use anger to manipulate the situation, because they don't have the ability to ask a thoughtful question or provide, something of value to the conversation. So they just have to weaponize emotions. And there again, across the board, when you're in a conversation with family, extended family, friends, and you notice that pattern of we're not really exchanging ideas, you're weaponizing emotions. It's a good place to kind of draw a line, take a break, and say, I'd love to talk about these ideas with you, but this, I'm not going to do.
Yeah. And that's so hard, I think, especially as women, to be so clear and forceful about, these are my boundaries, and if you continue to cross them, we're just not going to have this discussion.
Yeah, I did a whole chapter on clear as kind, and unclear as unkind, because there again, that cultural narrative is the opposite. It's considered, impolite to be clear with people versus it is a kindness, and it's a way to protect your relationships. It's a way to show that you care about a person. Like, I care about you enough to be clear. I care about our value our relationship enough to be clear about this versus I don't actually like you that much. So I'm going to be vague and kind of just ride on assumptions and let our relationship become a train wreck.
But also then you are saying you don't value the relationships of the other people that are interacting around that because, unlike in-person conversations, the internet is almost never one-on-one. So, just because I don't like you that much, and so I don't feel like I need those boundaries, it bleeds out to other people. And that's such a different thing than in person.
Yes.
Because how often do we talk one-on-one online? I mean, occasional DMs, but for the most part, it's meant to be a social media and back and forth with a whole bunch of eyes watching, which is... Can you imagine though, like if we just like went and hung out at the park and there were just like 400 other people just like hanging out like in a circle around, like watching,
observing your interaction. Yeah, I use an example in the book. As a teenager, I spent probably more than an appropriate amount of time in like honky-tonk bars. And I saw a lot of bar fights, but there's like one rule in bar fights, and that is the bartender cannot start throwing punches. Like, soon as the bartender starts throwing punches, all the sane people like leave out the back. Like, no good thing happens after this. And online, when you're interacting, like, you're the bartender, you're in charge. This is your circus. These are your monkeys. Like, you have to kind of set the tone and the pace. And I've totally made that mistake where I'm just like, you get pulled into a fight. And so you try to act like you would if it was in person. Like, no, I'm just going to explain more and I'm going to defend and I'm going to like make them understand me despite the fact they have zero interest in understanding me. And it just doesn't work online. Like, what works in real life doesn't work online. So I put one of the ideas in the book was give yourself the gift of being misunderstood. Just accept it. Like, you'll do your best. You'll put your best thoughts and ideas and intentions out there. And some people will think and feel and assume whatever they want to. And that's okay. Like, they can think and feel and assume whatever they want to, even if it was not your intention. And like, just give yourself that gift.
So what's your favorite chapter?
My favorite chapter? Whatever chapter I need the most that week. And especially this last week, it's been a lot with launching the book and every day it's been a new chapter that I'm like, oh, that's right. I did. Oh my gosh. You guys might appreciate this. Sometimes you post something online and it feels very innocent and just like, this won't cause much of a ruckus. I posted the statistic that men on average read 90% male authors and 10% female authors. And I didn't even put like a judgment on that. I just said like, I heard the statistic and I'm just thinking about it all the time. Yeah. Like, men, there was like 3 groups of men who went, I read a lot of female authors and I'm like, cool. Men who went, oh, wow, I didn't think that would apply to me. And it does. I'm going to do better. And then men who got their panties in a twist.
Who said, well, that's just the best content out there. And
yeah, their defense was basically women aren't interesting or smart and their ideas aren't worth hearing. And I'm like, is this the take you're going to stand on? Because like, it's not as good as you think it is. And I found myself, I have a chapter about, I used this quote by Chris Brogan, who said, I can't fix all the stupidity on the internet. I'm not the dumbass whisperer. And partway through trying to like engage, I was like, wait a minute. I'm not the dumbass whisperer. What am I doing? These people are not my job.
Yeah.
No one's paying me for this.
Well, and the kind of guy that's going to say, like, well, clearly this isn't a problem. This statistic is there because this is good, is not the kind of person that you're ever going to get through to convince that, it is something else. Hey, buddy. Yeah. Speaking of somebody who reads and listens to a lot of female authors, right, buddy? Like Tamara Pierce, who writes the Alana stories. Yeah. Yeah. All right, bud. Yeah. So, Hunter, bud, I will be done soon. And this is the life of parenting during a pandemic.
Yeah.
You're frozen.
My husband has corralled all 5 of my children into the basement, is trying to make them quietly fold their laundry, which is...
what is she saying?
They can do one or the other, but not both. They can either be quiet or fold laundry, but for some reason, laundry brings out the worst in them.
This guy actually does our laundry most of the time. So, but we do pay him.
Oh, God, what were you saying?
Oh, that we talk about laundry, but also about...
Huh? Oh, lame meeting just about laundry?
Yes, a lame meeting just about laundry. Now go watch your stuff. And I'll be done soon. Apparently that's how I need to tell him what's going on and why Mama's...
It's a lame meeting about laundry.
Yeah. It worked. I might use that in the future. So how do you feel about, like, as especially your older kids are like at internet age, how do you feel like writing this book and, doing the research for this book is impacting the way you're helping them navigate online?
It definitely wasn't like specific for kids by any means, but it made me realize we need to have a lot more conversations about this, because I have so many opportunities to correct and to teach and to educate them when I see their interactions. But there's a whole bunch of stuff online that, I'm not there in real time. And it's a conversation just like, oh my gosh, the embarrassing things my kids do that I'm just like, how many times do we have to have this conversation like this? Other people's kids probably are much better at this. But it's a lot. You have to, like, basic things, like throw your trash in the garbage. There's much more embarrassing ones. I will spare them that. But, like, just throw your trash in the garbage. And yet they just, like, we're in the van and they just throw it on the floor. And then I have wrappers all over my van. And I'm like, people, this isn't complicated. Trash and garbage. But yeah.
And so trying to explain to them how to work online is...
Yeah. We're going to have just as many conversations. And that's the trick, is that, not everyone has the same sensibilities you have. Not everyone has the same, kind of social moral compass that you're working with. So you have to interact and deal with like a wide spectrum of what people feel is appropriate behavior.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So who specifically do you think this book is most important for? Anyone who creates online, or any specific kind of person that creates online? Anyone who's online? Like, if you had just like 5 of these books to give out, who would you give them to?
I mean, it's really applicable to everyone who shares their work online, hoping to connect with a customer or an audience, because you're opening yourself up to the bigger, wider internet. But, honestly, for a lot of people, if you want to be kind of a thoughtful, not even creator, but if your idea of like Facebook engagement is like sharing your own thoughts and your own ideas and your own opinions and your own stories versus like just sharing a bunch of other people's memes. Like, if you just are the meme person, then you probably are fine. And, you won't need any of this. But if you're sharing more of what feels like yourself, which honestly, when we think about like social change, I think that's where most of it happens. Isn't in resharing an article or resharing a meme, but saying, here's my experience with
Kind
that
of like
subject matter.
There's never such a thing as too many blogs or too many podcasts, because everybody's got a different story. So, that whole, there's no such thing as saturation when it comes to online, which is also a whole nother thing. Like, in a community, there are only so many grocery stores that can exist, or so many nail salons that can exist. But when you're talking about online, the number of like food blogs or fashion blogs that exist, it's like there is no limit, which is a very weird, different thing to think about. So
I think the people actually that I would focus on, content creators kind of know they have to deal with this, and like this is a hurdle they have to figure out. The people I'd probably give it to are small business owners, service providers, because those are the people that like they have this hunch that they should be doing stuff online. They should be trying to engage a customer base online, but they're absolutely terrified because they feel like they have no ability to handle, like, what if people are really mean in the comments? And
because they're going to be.
Because they're going to be. So they are the ones that really hold themselves back and kind of miss out on all the upside and the potential that could come with, I worked at a furniture store for a while, and it's funny, whenever they post things or run Facebook ads, they have one disgruntled customer that posts on every single ad, every single post they share, and shares like the same like 4-paragraph disgruntlement. And that's what makes small business owners go, or maybe I could just like wait for people to like walk by and hopefully stop in, or I'll run like a newspaper ad or a radio ad, because those ones you don't get the same immediate feedback. You don't get that same personal feedback. But that's also the upside. You get to connect with people in a very one-on-one kind of personal way, which is so much more powerful than like a newspaper ad. So I would probably find 5 small business owners.
Yeah, it is different when like your business begins online, because then clearly you have to be online. But if your business is offline, that's a really, the book is called Fire the Haters. It's you can see it right in the background. I will drop a link in the comments also. I guess this is a good time to say too that I am going to give away 3 books for those who comment here. So I'll close it tomorrow. But if you just drop your name in here and say like why you're interested in this book, then you are entered to win. And if you're a small business owner and you hear this part and realize that maybe this is you, and maybe this is the push you need to start putting yourself out there a little bit more online, I'd love to hear it. But yeah, it's even like if you have an Etsy shop or you sell like soap through like farmers markets or something, that's how I buy my soap, is by, connecting with someone on Instagram who sells soap, because they're on Instagram. Occasionally I'll buy it. Yeah.
I bought because someone tagged the artist on Instagram. And I loved it. And I started following her work. These are very expensive mugs. I ordered $2,000 of her mugs. But it was just because of Instagram. But I work, like, half of my coaching business are service providers who would benefit from an online presence. And we work on that. And there's just, it's like massage therapists and architects and regular therapists and, photographers, people that, like, if you had an online audience, like, you could connect with your customers so much easier. But it's nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Well, and I think, even starting, clearly my business self is all online to begin with, but even starting blogging, those first couple of like mean comments that you get are really painful. They're like really, really painful. And it doesn't matter how self-confident you are or how much you believe in your stuff or, you know, that you're fully truthful when you share stuff online. Like there are going to be people that are absolutely awful online. And it, you know, there is a level of thick skinning that has to go on. And I think had I had this book early on, it would have saved me a lot of like pain and angst of dealing with that nonsense. You're still going to have to deal with it no matter what boundaries you put up. But
and
man,
it's like, especially the first part, the book's 3 sections. The first section's about kind of that life online. And it's some just really tactical, practical ways of like, we talk about like, you need a thicker skin. And my first question is always like, well, how do you do that? Like, wait, what am I supposed to be doing to develop that? And it's a lot of kind of tools and perspectives of how, not how to not care at all, but how to have a proper perspective, and kind of a helpful thought process on why people are saying this and why people are acting this way and behaving this way, and what your response should be mentally, physically, emotionally. You know, there's one part I put in there about offense, because it can be so easy to take offense. And I find it more helpful if you view offense as like a game of fetch, like someone's throwing an offense at you. And you can just be that puppy who like hasn't learned how to fetch yet, who just like someone throws it and they just look at them and go, oh, that's interesting. And they see him walk over and pick it up and throw it again. Like, just because someone
that's
throws
my dog.
offense, like, you don't have to catch it. You could just be like, oh, you had a big thought. You had a big feeling. You want to walk over and pick it up and throw it again? But like, I'm not going to be engaged in this game. This isn't a game I signed up to play. So like, if you want to keep throwing it, that's your business. But it actually doesn't involve me.
I really like that. And I, with an old dog who has played fetch maybe 3 times in her entire life, apparently I need to be more like Ellie.
Yeah.
Who just like looks at the ball and is like, why? Like, I'm not getting up. I'm not going to go run over and do that thing.
Yeah, you're crazy.
So.
I'll just watch you. You just walk back and forth and pick it up. And but people, the trouble is in our real life, because not as many people try to bait us and like try to be offensive to us. You can deal with it one-on-one, but online you might have 1,000 people who are all trying to play this game of fetch with you, and you would waste all of your time and all of your energy running around picking up offense from all these random people. And so yeah, just be a dog that doesn't fetch and be like, you know, I'm responsible.
And you know what? We stopped playing fetch with her because she doesn't bring the ball back. So eventually people get bored.
Yep.
And move on to somebody who's an easier fetcher. So.
And a lot of the ideas in the book are things that are born out of my personal experience, just friends and family and boundaries and stuff. But being online like amplifies that. Like, you can have okay boundaries in your personal life, and you have to have fantastic boundaries online. You can be kind of clear in your personal life. You have to be super clear online. So there's a lot of crossover, you know, and things like every adult is responsible for their own feelings. Like, I'm responsible for my emotions. Other adults are responsible for their emotions. So if they're trying to weaponize emotions to manipulate me, they have to sort out their feelings. Like, unless I'm their therapist, which I'm not, it's not my job to help them process their emotions. That's work that they have to do on their own, maybe with a professional, because if you're constantly weaponizing emotions online, like, I have a whole section of the book, like, or actually a chapter on like the toddler skill set. That's how toddlers engage, because they haven't matured and learned that this isn't helpful or appropriate ways to get what you want, is to throw tantrums. And you will see grown-ass men online throwing tantrums because you dared to like mention a book statistic of all the boring things that would outrage them.
Yeah.
I'm responsible for my emotions. They're responsible for theirs. They can
and if they're not responsible for them, then it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm mindful of your time, my time, everybody's time.
And I
is
love
there
the
anything
comments.
else?
I've been checking them out. They're very good ones.
Yeah. Do you have any last things you want to say, share? How has this first week been for you? Because I feel like the first week of launching a book, especially your first book, is, a really big thing. My mom's been an author my whole life, so I think I maybe have a little bit of a sense of that more than the average person. But, book launch week, month is like intense.
Yeah. And I tried to not make it intense. I tried to be very deliberate in pacing myself, because especially being bipolar, it's really easy for things to get topsy-turvy. Like balance is my number one priority, because things can go off the rail super fast. So I tried to be mindful of my pacing, but like I said, reading things back to myself, one of the chapters is called Optimize for Not Quitting. And this week, my motto was Optimize for Not Being Discouraged. Because not only do you need pacing, you need to have like enough optimism to just play the long game. And if I, for whatever reason, had certain expectations that could derail me, I just said, okay, every time I feel that expectation welling up, I'm just gonna release it, because I'm gonna optimize for not being discouraged.
I really like that. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking to us, and with pacing yourself with this launch, that Women's Personal Finance was a place that you wanted to share and talk about. Obviously, you are always welcome to come and join and chat with us. So yeah, again, for those of you who missed earlier, I am going to give away 3 copies of this book. So if you are interested, share in the comments like who you are, why you think this book would be helpful for you, or if you have somebody in your life, a family member or a friend who is a small business owner that you think would love this book, you can always enter for them as well.
Yeah.
So,
and with supply
good
chain
birthday
backups,
present or Christmas
if you're
present.
thinking Christmas,
Yeah.
like I would order sooner than later. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, I'm halfway done with my Christmas shopping for that reason. Yeah. So, and like the other half is all like homemade, handmade stuff. So like I'm pretty much done with the purchased stuff for that reason. So yeah, this would be a wonderful Christmas gift for someone that, has a small business who hasn't made that leap online, or who has. And, feel like the last year and a half too, with the pandemic, it's been way heavier online than it was 2 years ago.
Yes.
So I think this is a very timely launch of this book. So thanks so much. It was wonderful.
Well, thank you guys.
Chat.
And if you guys have any specific questions, I am in the Facebook group. Put them in the comments and I'll try to go back through and answer as many as I can.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Jillian. Yay. Have a good evening.
Good to see you guys.
Bye.